Thanks. Hello. Oh, does that work? I hate it when speakers do that. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And we tap it a few times, and I don't think it's working.
Just wear it?
It's. You think it'll work better if I wear it?
Maybe.
Good question.
Oh yes, that's much better. Yeah. There, now they can hear me. Yeah. Okay, great.
Is that awkward?
No, not at all. I don't need to see or anything. It's great.
Okay, hold on a second.
Could you get me a few more mics to wear? So we're on? We're not on? Philip, you're a little close there.
All right. Round two. Is that okay here?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Okay, there.
Oh, they worked. Yeah.
Seems like it works. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming, and I think we are running a little bit late. Some of you may know that I'm going to give a lecture on Thursday night, and it'll be a little more comprehensive, or I think quite a bit more. So if you like what you see or hate it and just want to come complain, Thursday night is kind of be the full talk. But I did want to mention a few things. I was asked to speak about freedom. I said, don't you have something a little broader of a topic I could I said, no, that's as good as we got. So I tried to quickly make a few notes. It's a little, I don't know if it's ironic or what it is, but the first talk I ever gave was in Oslo, about 15, 16 years ago now. And I remember because I was working at Surfer magazine in Southern California, and I got a call from a woman in Oslo, and I had to figure out where that was. And she wanted me to come give a lecture. And I was like, really? Me? A free trip? Where? Wow, yeah. And it was pretty exciting. And unfortunate, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but I still kind of react that way, even though I've gotten a lot busier in the last 15 years. And really? Me? A free trip? Where? And so here I am, a mere 15 years later. I have a feeling there were probably a couple invites in between. It didn't quite pan out, but that's another story. So I hate people that try to look at little tiny notes like I'm doing. I wanted to try to briefly address the freedom idea, and I think the one thing that came to mind for me is that I can't work without music. It's very important to my process. I've got to have music on. I literally can't work without music, and I think if you listen to music you like, you're going to do your best work, you're going to have more fun doing it, and you will do your best work. So I'm a huge fan of doing whatever it takes to have sounds you're enjoying as you're working. And it's, yeah, I just can't work without it, actually. You know, there's degrees of freedom. I'm trying really hard to address this topic. And how do you spell freedom? But sometimes people say to me, and you'll see a tiny bit of it before you have to rush off to your real jobs or real classes or whatever. You know, some people, I've heard people actually say, well, I have real clients, you know, you have all this fun stuff or whatever. And actually, no, I have some very real clients. And it becomes not a matter of can you do whatever you want for them, but can you find little areas that you can be successful in and make progress in ways that you're happy with, and yet still does what the client wants it to. And so it becomes degrees of freedom in a sense. And rather than say, well, forget it, they're not giving me any freedom, or they don't like what I showed them, or it's little things you can put in. And it needs to be things that the next person wouldn't have thought to do. You know, as we get more technically driven and other computers get fancier and all that, if you're not getting more personal in your work, you don't really need designers, because anybody can buy the same software and do a reasonable newsletter or website or business card. So I think you need to get more personal in the work, more subjective, and put some of yourself into the work and some of your personality. Because that's one thing nobody else can buy, nobody else can copy, nobody else has your background, your upbringing, your parents, your whole life experience. So if there's a way you can put that into the work somehow, even if it's small degrees, you're going to have more fun and you're going to do your best work. So I encourage you not to get, in a sense, lazy and let the computer make decisions for you. You should be making those decisions that I think people increasingly, more and more, you kind of let the computer make basic design decisions that you should be making. The distance between columns of type, for instance, you know, I think you should make, not the computer, and on and on and on. So I would say that freedom comes in degrees, and sometimes it's ironic in our profession that you try to kind of sneak through the good stuff. And I'm very comfortable showing a lot of work to clients that I think could work, and that I'm comfortable with. I don't show anything I hate, because they'll pick it for sure, guaranteed. As some of you know, and it'll follow you the rest of your career. But I show a lot of work I think with some tweaking could work, could do what they need to. And sometimes I'm surprised that they actually pick the more out there ones. And if not, I still think the selection I've given them, anyone would be an improvement of where they were, or would still accomplish what they're trying to do. So let me just show a few things, and then as kind of a teaser, hopefully to get you to the other talk on Thursday, but if not, maybe get a little idea. Skateboarding was kind of my, this has the sound, it sounds like it's going to be like a 4-hour talk now, but in lack of schooling, in my case, I have a degree in sociology, so I never learned all the things I'm not supposed to do. I always did what made sense to me. I had to read the article, listen to the music, look at the imagery, look at the photos, look at the art, whatever I've got. The answer is always in the thing itself. It's not somewhere else in a design annual or a book or something. You're given the ingredients where the solution or the answer is going to come from. So with the skateboarding magazine, it really was my schooling. My degree's in sociology. I think that's why I was interested in editorial design, where I got to read about real people or real stories and try to interpret them. So I used no grid, no system. I didn't know what grids were. By the time I finally learned about them, I didn't see any good reason to use them. And later people said, oh, he's breaking the rules. But my point was not to break the rules. The point was to do what made sense to me. And then other people said, oh, you can't do that, and those don't go there. But I literally never learned all the things I wasn't supposed to do. So when I start to do something strange on a page or whatever, you know, I don't have a voice from third year telling me, remember, those don't go there. We put these over here. I never had that. So sometimes not knowing the rules can actually be a benefit. So Skateboarding Magazine was my schooling in a sense. And I'll just run through some work because I know we don't have much time. This is for Yale University, their art gallery, some postcards they sent out, and just some fun stuff. And probably not a good idea to take photos while you're driving, but you can't text, you can't call, but I take a lot of photos while I'm driving. You know, I haven't heard a rule against that yet. And this was one of the last ones I got right before that truck. No. This is a really fun assignment for the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg. Needed a whole new identity, and there was signage for the whole place, and really, really nice assignment. They gave me a lot of freedom, looked at a lot of, I probably showed them 50 or more logo ideas because I really wanted this one because I knew they were going to put it on a building and do all these things. This was the building. This is a version of the logo they finally picked, not the exact one. I like to say St. Petersburg and leave it at that and let people think it's Russia, but it was actually St. Petersburg, Florida, which is not nearly as interesting. And, and it turns out that Dali himself had never actually been to St. Petersburg, Florida, but when the people who own most of his art in America were close to dying and put up all their collection for sale, this kind of lonely museum down in St. Petersburg, Florida, put up the most money and bought the collection, and all of a sudden St. Petersburg became famous for Dali, and he's never even been, so it's kind of weird, but anyway, I like to imply that it's probably Russia, St. Petersburg. I have a house in the Caribbean where I go surfing, and this is the porch and a nice wave coming through. And when you get to do these things, you get to show pictures of yourself surfing, so we're doing that now. It's taken me 15 years, but I'm going to show myself surfing. But also, I think I make my living from my hobby as well. You know, for graphic design, for me, it's a hobby. I enjoy it. I don't dread going to work. I don't watch the clock. I don't wait for the weekend. It's just what I do. I'm always scanning. I'm enjoying this room even because I'm noticing stuff on the walls, and so yeah. I think it's a good hobby. Well, I didn't realize I had quite so many, but of course I did. I've been up all night looking for the best surf photos to show of myself. But anyway, here's a poster, and the thing here that well, yes, it is me surfing, but. What I'm trying to show here is that sometimes where the obvious place where the type wants to go is exactly where you don't want to put it, and you're going to get something a little more interesting. So I'm sure I tried it bigger and in the middle and then kind of expected places, but I'm usually very suspicious of when I start to do that. Don't put things where they obviously want to go, especially initially, because there's probably a more interesting place. So for me, this got more interesting with the white space. I was asked to design some surfboards. The magazine that I think got me here was probably Beach Culture, because I did it right before Surfer, and I still can remember sitting at my desk at Surfer getting a call from this exotic sounding place, Oslo. I was here, and then they took me up to Bergen, and that was interesting because it was the first day they'd seen sun in apparently, I don't know, a century or something. But the entire city was out walking. It was very cool. We just arrived, and I said, wow, what a cool place. Every day, everybody's out walking. And they say, no, actually, we haven't seen the sun in quite a while, and they're pretty excited, but it was very cool. Some spreads from this is Beach Culture, and again, the starting point for me is to read the article, and if it's music, I have to listen to music, and that sends me in some direction. Is it angry? Is it sad? What would that look like? What would that feel like? Because communication starts a lot earlier than the reading process. Communication starts when somebody first sees the work, and do they want to know more? Do they want to pick up that book? Do they want to walk across the street and read the fine print on the poster? The communication starts early and way before actual reading. Subscription card for I magazine, some of you probably know. I think it used to be better, but it's still a good design magazine out of London. It just had to say an eye for I type magazine from America, called How type issue. This is a weird combination of stuff. This is a cover that I wanted for my first book and the end of print, and which is now in its 5th printing. End of print. Anyway, I'll probably talk more about that on Thursday. I think it really is the early stages of the end of print, especially it was then, and now we're even advanced a little bit farther. People confuse that with meaning the end of writing, and we were never trying to say it was the end of writing and smart people and things. It was just simply the beginning of the end of a medium, and we continue to see that with newspapers going out of business or cutting days that they print. Encyclopedia Britannica that every house in America has no longer prints these encyclopedias. Just signal after signal that it's really going away as a medium. And sometimes it's just refreshing to come across stuff like this when you travel. Somebody's keeping score of I think it was a basketball game, and it was really refreshing to see somebody go over and have to turn this thing. And maybe you had to be there, but. some work for Fox, or just trying to give them a clean, simpler thing because everybody had been doing the 3D, transparent type flying around, blah, blah, blah. Largely because they could. All the TV stations had found the same tools at about the same time, and especially local news programs were the worst with all this. So I tried to take Fox really clean. There's a cover for a London newspaper, The Guardian, a special section. The magazine's called G2, and a bunch of designers interpreted speeches Obama had made when the first time he won. And I just was very happy to actually get to do the cover on this particular issue. This is for a school in Florida. I'm trying really hard to get this back to freedom, but it's a tsunami benefit. And here I'm playing with the idea of these people had been through hell, but help was on the way. And I was trying to think, is there some way to tie those together? They'd been through hell, help was on the way, this was a benefit, you could go and they would get the money. So that was the starting point, another version. And the point here I want to make is that it wasn't that, oh, let's do something weird for this benefit. It was, there is a process, and okay, help. I don't think this particularly worked. I don't think I quite pulled it off, but there's something there. I probably should explore that again, but been through hell, help is coming. And then some work for Armani. I'm just trying to show you a little bit of one of the nice things I've had in my career is the weird diversity of clients, from surf to Nine Inch Nails to car companies, and that keeps it interesting. And it also allows me not to have any formula that I just plug in, because something I did for a rock and roll magazine or Nine Inch Nails or a surfer magazine isn't going to work for a big car company for the most part. Aspects of it might. This is a commercial for Samsung, storyboard presented to the agency. Ray-Ban sunglasses, where I had total freedom. Yeah, that was good. I worked that in, freedom. This is a fun kind of assignment where it only had to be an O. The name of the glasses was Orbs, and the O always had to be one of their sunglasses, and that was the only restriction, really. So it was, billboards and postcards, and those are fun. Book with Marshall McLuhan, or just interpreted his quotes. He's got a lot of great stuff, and maybe because I'm about done, I'll leave you with one of his better ones. I thought he says, if he talking about work and what's work and what isn't work, and his definition was if you're partially involved in something, then it's work. If you're totally involved, he called it play or leisure. So if you're halfway into what you're doing, that's work, and that's when you're watching the clock, and that's when you can't wait for the weekend and break. If you're totally absorbed in it, it's no longer work, whatever it is. And I think there's something real true in that. If you're at a lecture like this one or any other, and you're kind of like watching your clock, and this and that's because you're not immersed in it, you're not totally involved. But as soon as you're completely involved in something, it's fun, the time flies, it's no longer work. Quicksilver had a pro surf contest in New York for the first time a couple years ago, which was a big deal, and got to do all the branding for that. And I showed them a ton of ideas, and so here's one direction, and then here was another one, which would have been very simpler and kind of a hint of more of an abstract wave, and then ended up going a lot more in this direction. I mean, New York, I wanted it to be kind of gritty. I wanted to stop people, and these wild posted all over the city, I think would have made, you wouldn't have to know too much more other than, oh, that's that event, oh, that's coming up, and hopefully it would signal that. This is all stuff I presented, and most of it was not used, but they were very impressed with the amount of work I showed at the presentation, which I think sealed the deal. So sometimes clients think I spent a lot more time than I did, but plus it's fun. I got music on, I'm printing these out. I just, all different ideas. Pro New York. There was going to be skating and all these different events. And because they liked what was happening there, they asked me to do the one in France, which I still wanted to say with kind of a hand-done thing, but give it a different look. France is, this will come as a real surprise, is not New York. So I think they should look and have their own feel. Well, actually, this was back to the New York. They ended up settling with this kind of circle idea. Oh, wait a second, wow. Well, yours is different. I hope that hasn't been the whole lecture. That would really screw up what you're watching and what I'm doing. When did they quit moving? I wasn't watching the thing. Okay, here. That would be kind of interesting if what I was talking about had nothing to do with what you're seeing, but that's probably often the case with my lectures, so not a big deal. Anyway, this is a circle thing they ended up going with a lot, and it was kind of, it let people decide themselves in a way. Is it a wave? Is it a storm? Is it a weather pattern thing? Is it a tube in surfing? Or is it simply the O in pro? And it's probably all of that, and that's okay. And then my idea was to kind of wild poster the city, and you would just get one letter per poster, but of course it wouldn't be in order. There'd just be one poster or different ones in no particular order. But I think just seeing that kind of swervy letter, you would, oh yeah, that's that pro, it's coming up next weekend or whatever. And there was going to be skating, and yeah, real fun project. And this was another direction, and they actually went with a couple different directions. This was one of them. I had a friend of mine who's an illustrator, lives in New York and surfs, do the illustration and how it might look. This I thought was a pretty cool idea. You could actually tear off one of these posters and take it home and put it up. And kind of expensive for the sponsor, and not to mention the majority of them tours, they were trying to tear them off, but kind of a cool idea. And then back to France, again, trying to give it its own look and feel, and have, they wanted it to be a little more traditional in a sense, not that this is, but if you look at the word France, it's probably closer to being maybe a traditional kind of approach. And the owner of Quicksilver in France likes these older posters he kept referencing, and so try to have some fun with it. You know, it's the answers in the thing itself. We're talking about, you know, a younger crowd, surf, that are doing some great graphics finally after, you know, they finally took the lead of the skateboarders and started doing good graphics on the surfboards. It's amazing how long that took. But there's now some really nice things happening. For the first time, you can buy special markers made for surfboards that it'll hold up in the water. And you know, skaters have been doing that forever, and it's funny how surfers are actually, I think, a fairly conservative group. They don't have that reputation, but especially outside of the water, they can be pretty conservative. As I found out when I redesigned Surfer Magazine, and they got hundreds of hate mail. Yeah, I mean, it was literally mail, and I was kind of shocked because I had done Beach Culture Magazine. It was a big hit. Surfers kind of went nuts when their magazine changed all of a sudden, and changed quite a bit. And they got a lot of hate mail. I used to go down and try to get it before the editor saw it and hide it, but that's another topic. And then within a couple of months, all the ads started looking like the editorial, and it became no big deal. So there's something about the shock of the new, or so all of a sudden their magazine was different. And literally within 2 to 3 issues, all the advertisers wanted their ads to look like the editorial did. And so anyway, just having some fun here. Luckily, I don't have all of these. This is another project where I took newspapers from the Caribbean, where I go and painted out most of it and just left certain things. And it was just kind of a fun project for me, more fine art, I guess, related, and get out from behind the computer and just have these weird, the tagline for the British Virgin Islands where I go is nature's little secrets. And I still want to do an exhibition because I did a whole bunch of these. And these would be some of those little secrets. Police commissioner confirms homicides, fatal shooting, prisoner escapes. You know, I mean, and they're pretty much like this every day. And yet their big tagline is nature's little secrets. You know, come scuba dive and surf and sail and just you know, be on the lookout for murderers. Anyway. This is an early poster I did for an event in Brazil, and what strikes me now about this, it was one of the other speakers was Massimo Vignelli. And how many of you have heard, you probably know the name, and maybe a lot of you have heard, he's not doing well. He's just been, he just left the hospital actually to go home, basically to die, and so he's like not doing very well at all, obviously, but the point being, I met him on this trip, on this tour. Everybody who went was asked to do a poster, and this is where I was living in San Diego. And what struck me about Massimo is just his absolute love of life, and the fact that he was a designer. When you're hanging out with him and going to restaurants in Brazil and all that stuff was really secondary. He was dancing with the waitresses and just really enjoyed himself. And the fact that you wouldn't necessarily have known he was a designer. And I really always stuck with me, just seeing how much he just enjoyed his everyday experiences. And it's funny because at first he had a lot of horrible things to say about my work, and somewhere he said he wrote an article about my work doesn't communicate, and there's like 3 pages describing why it didn't communicate. And I'm thinking, well, it communicates something. He's pretty pissed off. 3 pages, you know, ink on paper can still get people riled up. And then after this trip, we kind of became friends, and it was funny because people would still ask him, what do you think about this Carson guy's work? And he changed his tone a bit, and he would say, oh, it's good, I like it, I like it. It's not graphic design, but I like it, I like it. There was progress, I guess. But, an article for Surfer Magazine about a scary place to go surfing, sharks, and so I wanted to feel not so friendly. Okay, it's sharks and it's cold and people die there, and Cold Sweat I thought was a pretty good title, and just some personal work. And this is again, people sometimes say to me, do you have any real clients? Well, yeah, and this is one of them. This is hopefully sometime this summer you won't be able to escape some version of this logo. It's a company that's, like so many others, a startup that says they're going to be bigger than Facebook. We'll see. But meanwhile, they're paying me to look at logos and the way their site's going to look and different promotions, and I'm intrigued, but I'm also leery because I went through the whole .com thing years back, and unfortunately took too many jobs payment in stock options. Oh yeah, no, just give me stock, because then when your company you all become billionaires, and I will too. Yeah, that'll be great. And hello. Ah! Had quite a few of those actually, so we'll see. But I'm hoping you won't be able to escape some version of this logo later this summer. I saw this in a magazine in a plane, and hot new products, and I just thought, wow, is this progress? Is this a hot new product? You have a plate in your keyboard. You certainly can't pretend you don't spend all day in front of your computer when you got a freaking plate built into the keyboard. And what do you put there? Soup or pizza, and then you type a little bit? I don't know. I just don't think this is progress. Usually this would be, again, you're seeing kind of the tail end of a bigger presentation, so there's maybe a few shots you're not expecting. But those of you having the coffee hasn't kicked in, maybe this will. When you surf, occasionally you get accidents. As I hit a piece of coral, and I was coming out of the water, and I realized, okay, this is worse than my usual little cut and scrape. Something this one doesn't feel too good. But I remember seeing on pictures and movies or whatever that you tie something tight around near the wound, and so I took off my rash guard T-shirt thing I was wearing and tied it really tight, and was kind of proud of myself. When I got to the hospital, the nurse said, "Why did you tie it at the bottom of your foot?" It's the idea is that between the heart and the wound, you want to stop that. I walked in feeling pretty proud of myself. Yeah, I did this myself. Stopped the bleeding, probably. And I said, no, it's doing absolutely nothing, actually. Sometimes people say, why did you put that in the slideshow? And maybe it's the same attitude I have in my work. It's like, well, why not? I mean, I think you probably, if I interviewed a designer, I'd want to know about their house and what kind of car they drive and all these other things that would tell you about them, probably more than just showing their work like I'm kind of doing now, although this isn't work. This is more stuff I used to shock my friends and young children with, because later you had to put this thing down in the wound because they didn't want it to close up because it was coral that caused it. And if it closed, you had coral, which is breathing, living stuff, and so I had to put this thing as long, like a shoestring down in the leg, and every day pull it out like a quarter of an inch. And like I say, I was really able to milk this a lot with friends and relatives. Oh no, I got to do that again. And by this time it didn't really hurt, but it still looked pretty strange. Anyway, and I hate to, I don't want to end on a weird gory skin photo, so I'll go to this one. I don't know what this is, but it just seemed to, I'll keep on. That's my, well, for at least half the audience, we'll go back. And this one, I think I can tie in a little bit. This is a brand new project, speaking of freedom, where I was asked to interpret or somehow make a statement it's the Smithsonian Institute in Washington is celebrating the 200th year of the Star-Spangled Banner in America, which is a big song about freedom. That's pretty good. But anyway, I'm pretty proud of that one. Anyway, and so they asked different artists to interpret this flag, basically. They said, here, do something with this flag. And President Obama is actually writing a piece about how wonderful it is that it's the 200-year anniversary. And I went back and forth. I like this image. It looks a lot better than the actual American flag that I've never really liked. I'm not a fan of red, white, and blue, and just the whole thing. But this is actually pretty cool, the haphazardness of the stars and the tears and things. But I decided to just use some of the key words from the song, because I was a little mixed on this whole idea of this Star-Spangled Banner. I don't know if you would know the words here or other people know it in other countries, but it's played in every sporting event and people get choked up, and it's just a big patriotic thing. But when you really look at it, it's celebrating. One of the big lines is bombs bursting in air, and that's why we were so proud. And I'm thinking, is that a good thing? So I was a little torn, and these are a couple of the explorations I did with this. So what I did was pick a few key words, and one of them is it talks about the flag signaled. It was proof that our flag was still there. There were these bombs bursting in air, and I thought proof. There's something proof to me made me think of President Bush in America, who was the 43rd president, and that's why you see 43 in there, and the word proof, and it's just like, you got that whole thing kind of a little bit twisted with this weapons of mass destruction claim that we went in and actually bombed the wrong country or an innocent country or a place where there were not these things that we were being told there was, and that's the reason we went in and annihilated so many citizens, and it's just all messed up. By far the worst president ever. So I've got a 43 in there as kind of representative of him. Brave, I have a little photo you see of my father there. Was a test pilot on the left, and I have a lot of respect for those guys that went up and tested planes for the government to see whether they flew or not. It's like, you see if that one flies, would you? And if they did, they'd say, what happens if you turn right really sharp? Sometimes they would turn, and sometimes they'd blow up. And okay, it does not turn right. And I mean, that's how they were learning. It was pre-computer, and I remember him telling me if they would try to see how high you could go without passing out. And he said at some point he'd start to pass out, and he found out that if he screamed at the top of his lungs, he would not pass out. It keeps the blood flowing. So he'd tell all the other pilots, okay, at this level, just start screaming really loud, and he won't pass out. It was that kind of rudimentary, and somebody, whoever had to listen to the cockpit conversations would complain and say, would you guys please quit screaming up there? This is really loud. And anyway, I started thinking about some of the decisions I have to make between Well, because sometimes people will say, "Oh, I see why you take chances. Your dad was a test pilot, so I see why you take chances in your work." And I go, "No, I mean, come on. So some of these decisions I have to make between like serif versus sans serif, and you know, not real life-threatening stuff for the most part." So I fail to see that connection actually. Anyway, I sent them 5 ideas, and I was I kind of left it up to them in a sense. I sent 5 for this magazine, and it just came out. I'm very happy to say that my father, who's still alive, got the magazine. I had it sent to his address, and he was pretty excited to find his picture in there, so that was kind of cool. He's 89 now. And but I sent him 5, and they narrowed down their 2 favorites. There was this one, which I would say is in a way more, I hate to say the word, but designy. The only other word worse than designy is probably grunge, but anyway, that's a different topic. And this was the other one that they narrowed it down to, these 2. And I was a little torn myself, because I think in some respects I was liking the design and the kind of motion going on here, but with a simpler, kind of cleaner one, it was a bigger picture of my dad, basically. The other word what I'm playing off of here is, well, I mentioned the 43, that's for George Bush. Proof, this whole Iraq fiasco is putting it mildly. Brave was my dad, and it was actually his initials, RC. And then the song talks about the bombs bursting in the air, proving that we're the land of the brave and the free. Well, for sure, when this song was written in Star Spangled Banner, there was a good part of the American population that was not free and wouldn't be for many years. So this whole idea that this proof that we were the land of the home, the brave and the free, and so that's where this picture I took of the people in the middle, the little kids, kind of addressing that issue. But anyway, this is the one they went with. I still haven't seen it printed, but my dad has, and he's very happy, so it was worthwhile. And look how cool this is. This is, well, I think it's cool. This is when he was a test pilot, they gave him this coffee mug, and that would still be cool today. I would like to have one of these. This is done in the 50s, and it says experimental flight test. Howard Hughes was the company he was flying planes for. I thought, wow, that's really nice. It's something I did for a hotel in Portland, yeah, they just let me write on some walls, and that was kind of fun. It says, "Good news, it's a brand new day. Come on, check it out. For you, for free, as is, today, guaranteed." And that's something I hope you'll carry with you today. And every day for that matter. But it's true, and I think we're in a profession that allows you to enjoy going to work and allows you to be excited about what you're going to work on. And because there's an awful lot of people who aren't and are dreading going to work. We all know them, and you don't want to be one of those people. But I think we're in a field that maybe makes it a little easier to not be somebody who dreads what they're doing. So I'll leave you with, for the 4th time, I'll leave you with the 2 things here. On the left, I was asked to do a redesign for a clothing company in Seattle last summer, and I don't even know if you would have heard of them, called Eddie Bauer, and they're kind of nobody really knows what they are, but they've been around a long time, and they went bankrupt, and they're kind of an outdoorsy company, and they brought me in to help because they had new owners or new investors, and to try to turn this thing around, like so often happens with these bankrupt clothing companies. And I was shocked when I started to work on one of their catalogs, or try to move it in a better direction. That I opened up the file they gave me, and I don't have it here now, but there must have been, I don't know, 25 guidelines, all in different colors, that they were using to make sure everything always lined up with something else on the spread or the page. And Jesus, I've never seen so many guidelines in my life. I can't work with guidelines. It's the first thing I have to do is eliminate them. Because to me they become part of the page, of the design. I can't not see that. So the first thing I do is eliminating any guidelines, and you should make that decision, not have the computer force it over a little farther than you wanted. That drives me crazy. And this actually was from a talk I gave in Seattle where this company is. It's turned out they weren't very happy about, but and I titled the talk, "Never Snap to Guides." Because you should be making those decisions as designers. Don't let your computer make those. You decide where the right place is. And then on the right here, it's from it's a paddleboard company called Bark. Their B is their thing, and they have this kind of, their tagline or whatever is "keep paddling," and I think it's pretty good, and certainly not only having to do with paddleboarding. It could be about life in general. When they gave me this photo, it would have been the whole thing and the whole person, and like I often do, I go in and find a section that I think is more interesting and more powerful, or maybe leave something to your imagination, or maybe makes you want to go inside and find out more. So kind of severe cropping, and yeah, and I just like that, just the hint of the guy's foot. So with that, I'd just like to leave you with never snap to guides and keep paddling. So thank you.